Hello everyone, Razorblade Mango here, and today I want to talk about Bungie's Marathon, which is the next game from the studio, and in case you didn't know, they had a content blowout event on Saturday, where not only did they have a showcase presentation where they talked about the game, they showed new footage of it, they also announced that certain content creators were at the event and they got to go hands-on with the upcoming alpha, and those impressions came out, so we have quite a bit of footage to parse through if people are interested in Marathon or if they're just curious to check out the latest Bungie game. So I think a fair question to ask, given my history and my general taste as a gamer, is why am I talking about this? To put it simply, I am not a live service multiplayer guy, and I don't want to give the general impression to anyone who's not familiar with my channel that I am in any way Bungie's target audience when it comes to Marathon. And again, it's a fair question to ask, like, well, then why are you talking about this? Because of my lifelong history with PlayStation, I have a great interest in observing their live service initiative and the gambles they are taking to bolster it. And Marathon, in my eyes, is one of their riskiest gambles yet. Maybe one of two riskiest live service gambles they have, especially since PlayStation paid about $3.6 billion to acquire Bungie and get a piece of this pie. So if PlayStation had not purchased Bungie for an insane amount of money, this video would not exist. But since they did, you goddamn right I'm going to talk about Marathon, because even though I don't have a great desire to purchase this, PlayStation chose to funnel almost $4 billion into buying Bungie. So I want to know where that money is going. I want to know what they saw in Marathon that played a part in justifying spending the money, the moolah, the billions of moolah to acquire Bungie instead of using that money for other things. And I want to start out by saying is that because multiplayer games, like I mentioned, especially extraction shooters, are outside of my wheelhouse, I asked some friends who are way more knowledgeable, experienced, and skilled at multiplayer games to give their thoughts on Marathon. And I was surprised by some of the answers, because they ranged from skeptical curiosity to just outright rejection. And I asked a variety of people. I asked some people who are just generally very, very skilled at multiplayer games. I asked some people who are into extraction games like Tarkov and Hunt Showdown. I asked some people who I know are big Destiny fans. And I asked some people just generally, who are more just casual gamers like myself, what they thought of Marathon, just to kind of run the gamut of opinions out there. And what's funny is maybe the most positive response I got was along the lines of, it seems interesting, but I don't know. And one of the people I asked was one of my best friends who has casually played Destiny for many, many years, still continues to this very day. And he said that he would not be playing Marathon because he does not trust Bungie to support it properly. And this sentiment about this lack of trust in Bungie, this is the general sentiment I've seen from people who are either casual Bungie fans or general gamers, or people who don't usually play Bungie games but are familiar with them because they know about all the controversy they've generated over the years. And what the game that people, I think almost everybody I talked to said that the Marathon looks like, is Apex Legends. For some reason, Marathon is giving them big Apex Legends vibes. And some people I talked to said, why would I play this when I can just go play Apex Legends right now for free? Which I think is a fair question. But going back to this instance of Bungie being kind of the dark cloud over Marathon. This plays into my theory that even little mistakes over the years build into big problems for a studio, where there's just this general lack of trust because of just multiple small hits the various communities have taken from Bungie, where they finally kind of, when a new product comes around that Bungie is like screaming their lungs out about during their showcase, they're expecting people to get hyped for our next game, a PvP extraction shooter, guys. There's just kind of this general sense from, you know, the general gaming community that's kind of like, like it looks okay, but Bungie. Again, it all goes back to those 6 letters, Bungie. So, as for my thoughts on Marathon, what I saw when I watched the footage, and I went through the official footage they put out multiple times. I watched some of the content creators that I like give their opinions on the game. I watched their footage. I saw raw alpha gameplay with nobody talking over it, just the game being played without any of the streamers going, well, am I right? Oh my god, I got shot. Like none of that. I just watched the game being played. No streamer dialogue. My main takeaway from this is indifference, I guess, is kind of the word I would use, which kind of surprised me. And I want to say, look, I will still need to get my hands on this game. Of course, I still need to get my hands on the game to really give a, you know, good educated thoughts on the combat and the general feel of the game and whatnot. I totally acknowledge that. But just based on what I saw in the footage, what it looked like, I was surprised by how indifferent I was to what they showed off. And one of the things that Bungie and some of the content creators who were at the alpha event, they were throwing around these hyperbolic adjectives like game-changing and revolutionary. I think even one of the videos they released, like right out of the gate, you have one of the content creators like, this is gonna change the game, man, is saying shit like that. There was nothing in this that I saw that looked game-changing or revolutionary. So it just sounds like embarrassing hyperbole when I take it at face value. And I kind of just sat there and looked at the footage and thought, yeah, this looks like a multiplayer game. Yup. Like nothing about it really surprised me or seemed innovative. I mean, I don't think the Apex Legends comparison is particularly unfair. I was looking at it and just the way the characters were healing and sending out drones and reviving people and doing finishers on downed players. It just looked like any other multiplayer game I've played over the years, and I looked at it and I went, okay, like, sure, I guess, like, it looks fine, but, you know, I'm not gonna be forking over money for this thing. Initially, my main draw to Marathon that I talked about during the video I did a few months ago where I analyzed PlayStation's upcoming live services was the art style. But now that I've seen it in action in the game itself, something about the art direction looks off to me. And I don't quite know how to put this. I don't quite have my finger on this, because I thought the game's candy-colored synthetic look had a lot more pop in the CG trailer. Like, I thought it looked very striking in the CG trailer they released a few years ago, and then that Save the Date trailer they released before the event. I was very impressed by how the game looked, even though it was a CG trailer. But when I see this art style, this candy-colored synthetic look in the game itself, it just looks like it's missing something. It just doesn't look quite right. And that's not a good criticism to have, to say like something just doesn't look quite right. But it's really all I can say at this moment, just after watching the footage. I think the best comment that I saw from somebody is they said something along the lines of, it's weird how this art style manages to be both incredibly colorful and washed out at the same time. And I think that's a very apt statement when it comes to this art style, because I look at it and I recognize that it is colorful and there's a lot of bright colors and neon everywhere, but it looks it's almost like they have this slight hue of gray mixed into all the colors that just doesn't have that pop that I saw from the CG trailer. It just looks so strange. And I think another thing that I found amusing when I heard more information from some of the content creators, from what I've heard, the narrative team on this game has written how they will tell their story, but not the story itself. 5 months from launch, which I think is hilarious. And I'm sure that the narrative, in quotes, because I'll be honest, I don't think it's completely necessary to have a narrative in a PvP VE extraction shooter, but I'm sure this narrative, in quotes, is going to be delivered via the faction vendors, where it's very similar to Destiny, where you take a faction bounty out into the wild and you complete it, and then when you drop off your faction bounty to a vendor, they're just gonna spew some inane dialogue at you like they do in Destiny. That's how I imagine the narrative, in quotes, is gonna go. So let's go over some of the launch details as well. So Marathon is going to be releasing September 23rd, 2025, which is the same day as Borderlands 4, so that's interesting. It will be a paid release, but not $70, and this is something that has been rumored for a while now. My guess is that it's going to be $40 for the standard edition, and then they're going to have $60 deluxe edition that comes with extra skins and the first battle pass and maybe early access. I don't know about the early access part. The more I've thought about that, given that Bungie, I don't think Bungie really has a history of doing early access, like off the top of my head, that I can think of. I know PlayStation definitely does, but not Bungie. So maybe this digital deluxe edition will just come with the extra cosmetics and the first battle pass, which that's pretty par for the course with PlayStation's live services recently, with Helldivers 2 and Concord. Or no, Concord did not come with a battle pass in its digital deluxe edition, because they weren't even going to start its next season until the month after it got killed. Anyway, so the game is going to launch with 3 maps and 6 characters, or runners as they call them. And I've seen some contention around the 3 maps thing, because people are going, what? That seems very paltry that it's only 3 maps for a game like this. But from what I understand from people who play extraction shooters, maps in these games are usually very large. So if these maps are of like very, very large quantity for each zone, then I don't think 3 large scale maps for $40 is that bad personally. But then again, I don't play extraction shooters, so I don't know exactly if this is something the community really hates or is just kind of expected when it comes to extraction shooters. I really don't know. So they also talked about a ranked mode that may or may not be available at launch. Maybe it'll come later. I don't know. I have some thoughts on that ranked mode, but we'll save that for a bit. Season 1, it's gonna have a battle pass. It's gonna have a new character, and it will come with a new map. And apparently Bungie is hyping this new map up to the high heavens. They're making comparisons to a having elements of a Destiny raid and whatnot, so we'll see about that. And then, this is probably the most contentious point of all amongst the launch details that I've seen, besides the price, and I'll get to that later. All of your loot resets at the beginning of each new season, which, from what I understand, is something that's very common in extraction shooters. But, and I think SkillUp made a very good point, is that if you're looking to bring in Destiny players to this game, they're not going to be particularly happy with that detail, because Destiny players like to hoard loot. Destiny players love leaving their loot in the vault, and I speak from experience, having played Destiny during its both Destiny 1 and 2 during its early years. I do not like the idea of grinding for loot and then having my loot reset at the beginning of each season. So that's a hurdle that Bungie is definitely going to need to overcome when it comes to appealing to more like Destiny players or more general players. So this brings me to my next point, which I think this is the golden question when it comes to Marathon. Is the extraction shooter genre too hardcore for this to live up to financial expectations? Because PlayStation and Bungie have put a lot of time and money into this. And it's surprising that they've done that, because PvPvE extraction shooters is a very niche genre. Now, I'm all about appealing to niche genres. That's something I have championed for many years, finding very specific pockets of players and appealing to them. But spending an astronomical amount of money on a PvPvE extraction shooter, that seems more like financial irresponsibility than confidence. And the thing with extraction shooters is that it is a very high risk, high reward genre of PvP, where it's not like Helldivers, it's not like Fortnite, because those games, even though you do lose certain things going into the game, and if you die, it's nowhere near as brutal as an extraction shooter, because an extraction shooter, you could lose everything. You could lose your weapons, you could lose your weapon attachments. It's not like just a currency that you're losing. It is, except your skins, I assume, and little like cosmetic tote that you may have on your character, you lose everything when you die. So again, very high risk, high reward. This game has a much higher risk of frustrating and alienating like the casual gamer, the casual PvP player that kind of just wants to unwind at the end of a long day with rounds of Call of Duty or Fortnite or Apex Legends, where they don't have to worry about losing all of their gear and all of their attachments and all of their loot and everything. This also brings me to that ranked mode that they mentioned earlier, because this is a scenario that I thought of where it's like, if you go into ranked mode, let's say they offer some kind of like gold or platinum ranked mode thing where you go in and you bring your best gear, your best loot. I can imagine this mode being extremely frustrating for certain players, even if they know what they're getting into, because they're going into a ranked mode with their best gear, their top tier gear, and there's a chance that not only if they lose could they go down a rank, but they could lose all their shit. So now they can't even get into a ranked platinum or gold ranked mode to then try again, because the threshold, the barrier to entry literally might be too high for them, because they don't have the gear for it, and now they have to start all over again. I don't know. That to me does not sound fun at all. That sounds like a gigantic headache for me. But there might be some players who are into that. And again, it's all about finding them, appealing to them, and making them stick around. It's like, man, what an uphill battle, just the fact that this being an extraction shooter is. And I don't think extraction shooters are an oversaturated genre, like I've seen a lot of people throw out, because I can really only think of the big ones out there, which are Tarkov and Hunt Showdown. And Tarkov isn't even on consoles. That's a PC game only. So really, Bungie's only competition in the extraction shooter genre really is Hunt Showdown, unless there's a big one that I'm completely blanking on. So if any of you can think of one, just let me know. I'm really struggling to think of a big one that has as much stature as Hunt Showdown on consoles. And speaking of capturing audiences, let's talk about the price, because this is probably going to be the biggest point of contention among people, is that Bungie is going to be charging an upfront price for this. Now, they charged an upfront price for Destiny and Destiny 2. Destiny 2 initially, before it went free to play. And I understand that Tarkov is $50 to get in on PC. Hunt Showdown is $30 at bare minimum to get in. So it's not unusual to charge an upfront price for an extraction shooter. But I don't know if this is going to be a good move that pays off, because not only is there a lot of competition when it comes to just PvP games in general on console, there's just, it's a lot of, I mean, you're asking an upfront price for a game that you could probably get a similar, a less frustrating but similar experience in other free-to-play games. And again, this is where it's kind of like PlayStation and Bungie are late to the party when it comes to possibly finding their own little niche for this game and enticing people to spend at least $40 on it to play. And it's not impossible that a paid multiplayer release is a success. I mean, look at Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is the fastest selling PlayStation game of all time. And it has had way less marketing and way less pedigree than Bungie does and Marathon does going into its launch. And it was a huge success. Huge. So a $40 price point is not, I don't think it's the deal breaker that some people are making it out to be, but it's definitely a risk. And I think the reason Helldivers 2 was such a big hit is because it found a niche audience, and I think it found a section of players that were not being served, where it was a unique game, where it's a PvE co-op shooter that has a very silly, sardonic sense of humor, where it feels very much like a throwback to the classic multiplayer days, where it's just fun chaos. And sure, Helldivers 2 has monetization and whatnot, but its core gameplay feels very old school. There's nothing like that I've seen in Marathon. It does not look like a throwback to an old school time and whatnot. It looks like a very hardcore niche game that has a lot of modern trappings and kind of just visually, as far as the gameplay, it looks very samey compared to a lot of games out there. So I mean, that's a bold strategy, Cotton, with that $40. If it is $40, let's see how it plays out on that front. And speaking of paying, let's talk about the microtransactions, because, oh boy, for those out there who think that because this is going to be a paid release, that Bungie is not going to monetize Marathon up the motherfucking butt, oh my sweet summer child, do I have a bridge to fucking sell you. It must be wonderful being that naive to think that Bungie are not gonna monetize the living shit out of Marathon. Not when their studio relies on this thing being a big financial hit. And I have a lot of questions when it comes to this, and from what people have said, Bungie is not willing to talk about the monetization at this point in time, probably because they haven't even figured it out themselves. So we already know this game is going to have battle passes. And my major question with that is, do these battle passes expire? Because if they do, and they want to put in an air of FOMO into them, oh boy, that's not going to go over well with a lot of people. And if they don't expire, what are you going to offer in these battle passes that you can't find on the store and in the game? What are you going to do? You can't offer loot. You can't offer gun attachments because you could lose those in the game while playing. So mainly what I see is just you offer skins, you offer, I don't know, visors on the eyes, you offer banners and icons and just dumb cosmetic tat, I guess. I guess that's what you put in the battle pass. That doesn't even include Bungie's shop that I know damn well they're gonna have in this game, because that Eververse shop in Destiny 2, my god, are the prices just outrageous for cosmetics. It's horrendous, that shop. And it was very clear to me playing Destiny 2 that a lot of Bungie's focus went into that goddamn shop to make that run like it should. You know, God forbid Destiny suffers from a game imbalance or a bug or something that breaks a weapon. Oh, Bungie's like, oh, we'll get to that. But when it comes to the Eververse, if something goes wrong with that, oh, quick, we gotta quickly fix the Eververse shop. God forbid that our cash cow shop be bugged. Oh my god. So do expect this game to be over monetized, because, and this brings me to one of my final points is will this game succeed? Because I think in the short term, yes, I still think, even though this game has a lot going against it, in my opinion, I think this game will still be a short-term success simply because it's Bungie, simply because it's the next big PvP, VE extraction shooter. I'm sure PlayStation and Bungie are gonna pay all the streamers out there to get in on it and play it and go, wow, dude, and have a fun time with it and what have you. So that's gonna entice people to go out and play it. And again, short-term success, yes. People saying that this is going to be Concord 2.0 have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Okay, like this game has nothing in common with Concord outside of Bungie or former Bungie alumni working on Concord. Not even close to being similar. Long-term success, though, this is where I am way more skeptical, because Bungie are notorious for having turbulent support for their games, to put it mildly. I mean, there are like hours-long videos out there that go over the controversies that Destiny has had over the years because of Bungie. So there's nothing that I have personally seen or heard from either Bungie or the content creators that things are going to be much different for Marathon. And I think it's also worth remembering that Marathon was supposed to be one of Bungie's many irons in the fire. This is not the game that was supposed to be the big one game that they were working on. This is not, it was never meant to be like their Grand Theft Auto 6 or their Red Dead 2 for Rockstar, where like all hands on deck, all facets of the studio are going to be working on this one project. Marathon was supposed to be one of several projects they were working on. Not the game they need to succeed to keep the studio going in a comfortable state. But because of the C-suite at Bungie's incompetence and financial recklessness and total managerial buffoonery, almost all of their other projects in incubation were either canceled or moved to PlayStation Studios itself, like the Project Gummy Bears, the fucking MOBA Smash Brothers thing they were apparently working on. That's supposed to be good, apparently. And they've had 2 rounds of layoffs, so the studio has shrunk. So all that's really left that's playable from Bungie these days is Destiny 2, which has been in a really strange position since the final shape came out, and now Marathon, which is a PvP game in a genre that's very niche. And given what we know about this game's rocky development, I have a feeling the launch of this game, while financially successful, is going to be rough. Like, I get vanilla Destiny 1 vibes from everything I've seen from Marathon and heard about it. Because it seems like Bungie themselves aren't really sure of how the game is going to turn out. And unless it comes together very well during the final months of development, I think a lot of day one players are going to be surprised by how shallow and haphazard the game will be at launch. And Bungie was throwing out this term that I never like to see, where they go, we want to build this game with the community. And I go, that's cool and all. If you want to do that, then throw it up on PC as an open beta or early access for like $20 or something. Don't do this big marketing hype cycle and then release it on multiple platforms in a 1.0 state and then turn around and go, well, this is a rough draft of what we want to do, but we want to build the game with the community. It's like, no, that's those two things contradict each other big time, and they almost never lead to good things at the first months or so of a game. So I think the game is definitely going to have teething troubles for the first few months after release. Whether it can retain day one players is a big mystery to me. Whether it can even entice enough people to spend $40 to get into the game is a big mystery to me. There's just a lot of big question marks with Marathon, and I always think back, and this is my final point. The reason I'm so skeptical about this game and its long-term prospects is that I always think about that infamous GDC talk where one of like the big people at Bungie, Justin Truman, said that they did not want to make great content for Destiny 2 consistently because it would please players too much and they would expect that level of quality each time. And it was one of the most eyebrow-raising things I've ever heard a game developer say. Even at the time when I heard it, I was like, what? And I get the point that, in theory, I get the point that he was trying to make, where what he was probably trying to say was that if you try to over-deliver every time, you set a bar of expectations that would not be healthy for the studio. In theory, I can agree with that, but that's the problem with a live service. And you're willingly choosing to be in the live service business. So is this the same philosophy they're going to bring to Marathon? When they could have made Marathon a much more tightly designed single-player game in the end? Have it be a much smaller project instead of trying to chase yet another cash cow, and now you find yourself in yet another situation where this game has to succeed, your back is against the wall. Like, how many times can Bungie have their backs against the wall before the wall finally just fucking crushes them? So is this the same philosophy that they're going to be bringing to Marathon, where they don't want to release high levels of quality each time with their content because it's going to demand too much from their staff? What are they going to do? Just make and release mediocre content because it's faster? And it engages the player just enough to keep them on the content treadmill? It's like, oh, I got 2 bounties today, better go do my... Again, it's like clocking in for a job. Is that what Marathon's gonna be? Is it gonna be another fucking part-time job that people are gonna have to play while they wait for the next big content drop and the next big season to roll around? And this is on top of them still supporting Destiny 2. So you're going to have half of Bungie working on Destiny 2, and then you're going to have half of Bungie working on Marathon? It just doesn't seem sustainable to me. So That being said, I'm way more looking forward to seeing how the game performs financially than I am to actually playing the game myself. And I would also love to know how much money Bungie and Sony are pouring into Marathon, just so I have some kind of baseline figure to gauge how many copies they need to sell of this thing and how much revenue it needs to generate in order to make this endeavor profitable. It's just, this is a huge gamble for not only Bungie, but for PlayStation. And I have a funny image of Herman Holtz standing at a craps table, kind of like shaking dice before he throws it on the table, and he's like sweating bullets. He looks like the skit from Key and Peele where Jordan Peele is like sweating bucket loads. That's how I imagine Herman Holtz right now, because this was one of his big things under his tenure when he was in charge with Jim Ryan. So this is one of the big Jim Ryan era gambles that is now finally starting to see some fruition and is about to be sent into the wild. So good luck. You know, that's really all I've got to say left at the end of the day. And this video is going on longer than I expected, but I love talking about the live service prospects of PlayStation. I really do. I find this so interesting. But good luck. Good fucking luck to PlayStation. Good fucking luck, especially to Bungie. They're gonna need it. Anyway, so thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about Bungie and Marathon and its prospects. And as always, I am Razorblade Mango. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all next time. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.